Today's March 29th, Wednesday, March 29th, 2023, and this morning at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, Stronghold Digital Mining had its investor presentation. Now, I was here to take it all in, and I created a live stream, which you can find on my channel. There's not a whole lot of analysis in that video. I'm just listening, and I did create like chapters or time codes. So if you want to jump around a little bit, go to the questions or hear specific parts of the presentation, you can do so via that video. You can, of course, also go to the Stronghold Digital Mining website, and you can find not only the audio replay of the investor presentation, but a PDF file that contains all of the slides and relevant bullet points associated with this morning's presentation. If I seem a bit subdued, it's not because I'm in any way, shape, or form unexcited about what transpired today. I'm just a bit tired. This has been quite a process. So I want to be very respectful of your time, and I want to just get right into the heart of what we're going to chat about tonight, which is I just want to highlight several things that were discussed today that, yes, we've talked about it on this channel quite a bit, but I think it's useful to just get official confirmation from the company as to what's going on as it relates to some of these items. So how are we going to build some equity value, right? That's something that we've talked about a lot. I do want to address our market cap first and foremost. So we're currently now at about an $80 million market capitalization based on our closing price today. And no, it's not because our share price shot up in value. It's because the number of shares outstanding has been clarified to be about 130 million and a half shares. Now, that's not a surprise to me or any of us, right, who have followed the company and knew that this was coming. I just wanted to be very cautious insofar as updating the dashboard, the Designer.com homemade dashboard. I didn't want to plug in a number of shares outstanding that I wasn't entirely certain would be the case until we got official confirmation of that. So we did. And I don't really anticipate there being any more dilution at this point. I really don't. And I don't think any of us, certainly on Twitter, who follow the company, I don't sense that there's any real concern about dilution going forward. So as it relates to our market cap, we're at about 80 million. So the goal is to get to at least 100 million. So, we're getting a little bit closer to that. On the topic of our share price and on the topic of our market cap, today is March 29th. Now, I don't want to upset you, okay? I know that some of you get a little bit nervous when I talk about the D word, right? The delisting word. So I calculated that I believe it was like May 29th would be the date upon which, we'll have had our shares kind of like above $1 a share for, I believe it's like 10 days or so. So that's like 60 days or so from today, right? More or less. So that's on my radar, but fear not, we can always do a reverse stock split if that is required. One can, well, let's not get into the whole reverse stock split thing today. I know that's upsetting for some people, and my intent is not to upset, but it is important that we be mindful of the fact that, we walked in through the front door, right? We didn't merge with some SPAC or anything like that. We walked in through the front door. We had an IPO. We're sure as hell not going to get kicked out the back door. See what I'm saying? Walked in the front door, did a formal IPO. We're not going to let ourselves get delisted and get the boot out the back door. So one way or the other, we're going to get this figured out. That didn't come up in our presentation today, but it is something that has come up in regulatory filings in the past. I mean, everything's in place for us to do a reverse stock split. The board would have to give the okay and set the parameters of like, hey, what kind of stocks, reverse stock split do we want to do? Stuff like that. But anyway, I'm just mentioning that because, hey, let's keep it real. It's something we need to be alert and aware of, okay? So officially speaking, our adjusted EBITDA for Q4 2022 was 5.2 million. I think previously I saw something that was like 4.8, but it looks like it's 5.2 million. That is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. For all of fiscal year 2022, we mined 2,089 Bitcoin. That's a lot of Bitcoin. Okay. How are we going to build equity value? So the vertically integrated model is demonstrating value. So if grid prices are greater than BTC mining economics, well, then we curtail the miners to sell power to the grid. That's something that's not that unusual for us to talk about, right? We talk a lot about the grid and, hey, we're, Bitcoin price in dollars per megawatt hour. What's the relationship there? But now we're getting official confirmation. Yeah, this is what we're doing. If grid prices are below our variable cost of power, then we curtail the power plants to buy power from the grid. And that's something else we've talked about a lot. Now, the variable cost of power, I have generally been using the $45 per megawatt threshold for the dashboard insofar as determining, hey, are we likely to be importing power from the grid versus not, or just like generating our own electricity. So our variable cost of power was mentioned by Greg in a January 31st, 2023 interview with Compass Mining to be at about $30 a megawatt. So I may actually make some minor adjustments to the dashboard so that the if-then trigger as to, hey, are we importing power from the grid or are we just generating it ourselves? I might sensitize it a little bit closer to that $30 a megawatt value instead of the $45 a megawatt value that I have in there right now. Bear in mind, I'm drawing that $45 megawatt number from our guidance, right? We're guiding towards our net cost of power for Q1 2023 as between $45 and $50 a megawatt hour. So anyway, didn't mean to get into the weeds on that, but I just wanted to highlight that. We have a greatly improved balance sheet and liquidity. So we restructured or extinguished every piece of material debt on the balance sheet. There's roughly a $60 million current principal amount of debt, no mandatory amortization until July 2024. Eliminated largest payable of about just over $11 million in exchange for $3.5 million subordinated note and about 3 million warrants. And I think those are penny warrants if I read correctly. Don't quote me on that. Ramping up hash rate with high capital efficiency. So in January, I believe it was January 20th of this year, I speculated that, or predicted almost, that we would probably exceed our 3 exahash guidance in terms of our mining capacity. And now we're getting sort of confirmation of that. Expect to achieve 4 exahash of hash rate capacity by year-end 2023, building a fleet through prudent purchases of distressed leading mining rigs. And as I mentioned in a video a couple days ago, Minerva is beating expectations. 85% of the contract value, the order value has been received, and the miners delivered to date are now performing in line with specifications. I want to point something out. I actually received an email from BITMAIN. It was like, hey, dear customer, are you interested in I believe it was like the XP model of their, flagship, miner, so to speak. And I believe they were offering it like $23 per terahash. And I thought, wow, it's interesting that they'd be reaching out to me because I'm in the past, it's not like I'm some, huge buyer. But it's telling that during our investor presentation today, I believe the phraseology used was it's an all-you-can-eat buffet to go out there and purchase miners in the secondary market, or arguably even in the primary market, as evidenced by the fact that I'm getting an email from BITMAIN. And I'm certainly not, it's not like in the past I ran, some massive data center, but still, if they're reaching out to someone like me, it suggests that there's definitely a desire on the part of some of these more seasoned manufacturers to try to reach out to past clientele to see if they can get some extra business. And that probably suggests there's not a lot of buying going on out there. So that's really good for Stronghold if we want to really, fill out our data center at this point. And it seems like we're probably going to do that sooner than later. And I that's something, if you follow me on Twitter, if you follow some of the other individuals on Twitter, great. All the guys on there, guys, you know who you are. Thank you for all your analysis and all of your help and feedback and thoughts. If you're watching this video but you're not active on Twitter, find me on Twitter. You'll see the link in the description below. And then just check out the little ecosystem, this community that we've got there. There's some really great insights being shared all the time regarding Stronghold and the Bitcoin mining ecosystem as a whole, as well as grid prices and practically everything else. So cost reductions, as mentioned, the company's continuing to guide towards, and they expect between $45 and $50 a megawatt hour, all in net cost of power by Q1 2023. That's the quarter that we're practically just about done with right now. Cash G&A trending below $20 million run rate, excluding transaction-related legal costs. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's great, though. I mean, our costs are really being contained. And then finally, as I mentioned recently, right, we're growing our beneficial use ash sales. And so yeah, we did about 300,000 of ash sales in 2022, with about 60% of that coming in the fourth quarter. And now we're guiding towards maybe, hey, don't bake this into any models or anything like that, but it looks like we could do about $1 million in business in a beneficial use ash sale. So that's really, really awesome. So, I'd encourage you to check this out in more detail. I do want to point something out, though, really quickly here. So we as a company, or well, the Stronghold as a company, got a lot of flack last year when they decided to say, hey, you know what? Let's, in a very mutually friendly way, let's return about 26,000 Bitcoin mining machines in exchange for extinguishing about $67 million in debt. And at the time, a lot of the headlines were, Stronghold leaving the mining business, what's going on? There was a very negative overtone to Stronghold doing that. But the funny thing is, they've been able to grow hash rate capacity by about 1.2 exahash, okay, with incremental spend of just $5 million since returning those 26,000 machines in August of 2022 to eliminate about $67 million in debt. Now, to me, that's pretty darn smart. I mean, that's like really, really smart. And that's, and do we get any credit for that? Not much, at least certainly not in the mainstream, financial press. But to me, and I sort of sensed this at the time as being like a really smart move. And now we're seeing the proof of just how smart of a move it happened to be. We're not getting out of the Bitcoin mining business, but again, it's like one of those things when you have the optionality of saying, hey, we could sell power to the grid, and we could do that while returning these machines. So we're not really incurring that much of a substantial loss in revenue, right? It's like Q4 2022, 5.2 million in adjusted EBITDA. I mean, that's pretty amazing considering the fact, again, it's not like we had a fully filled out data center. And again, that's the optionality of being able to sell power to the grid when it is economically viable to do so. So yeah, I'll tell you, it was just a phenomenal investor presentation. So much value, I think, comes yes, the numbers are awesome, and it's great to read about what happened in Q4 2022, but when you get into the context and color, and you get more into the discussion, right? Like the questions that are asked, and you start to try to figure things out. That's where I think these investor presentations are utterly amazing. And today absolutely lived up to that. I do want to thank Kevin Dede over at HC Wainwright. I felt like he was like channeling my mind in a way, because he asked some really great questions about how we handle our power plants in the context of, do you sell to the grid if you're mining Bitcoin but importing power from the grid? What happens to the power plant? And to be fair, and I want to thank Stronghold Digital Mining for addressing this in the PDF itself, because, meaning the investor presentation slide deck, it answered the question. For me, it answered it right in there as well. And that's awesome, because I think for a long time, many of us, right, were saying, hey, we see the power plant, at least certainly Panther Creek seems to be operational, but yet grid prices are astronomically low, right? What's going on? And there's actually one line, I'm just going to highlight this because I think it's so so on point here to this question of like, hey, are we like in an idle, low power mode? What's going on? So in March, Stronghold has reduced power plant output to import power to mine Bitcoin at its data centers, given extremely low grid prices. Emphasis on the phrase has reduced plant output. To me, that sounds a lot like idle/low power mode. And that was in fact confirmed in so many words during the investor presentation today. It sounds like there are multiple times during the day where we're actively pulling electricity in from the grid. And that's awesome. There's some nuance to this, and I get that, right? It's not as clear cut as, right, you turn the plant off and then like turn it back on. It could take up to 24 hours or actually longer sometimes to fully fire up these plants. So anyway, I would encourage you to listen to that investor presentation. In fact, as I said, I created chapters. So if you look on my channel, you'll find a link to that video, right? And you can just click right to the questions that were being asked by Kevin, and it really goes to the heart of this issue. And so, yeah, I mean, listen, as a company, I think Stronghold Digital Mining is hitting it out of the park. I really believe that. Now, is that being reflected in our stock price? Not quite as of yet, no. Is the fact that we're doing so well at containing costs, is that being appreciated by the financial markets? No, not really. At least not certainly to the degree I think it should be. I believe strongly that we still, I think, are subject to an aspect of obscurity. This idea that like kind of like nobody even knows about us, and that's something that we collectively, as a shareholder community, have to work to improve. There's no shame in, look, if you're passionate about Stronghold Digital Mining, the people around you are going to know that. The people in my life certainly know that I talk about Stronghold Digital Mining quite a bit. And no, it's not like I'm, running up to people that I know, friends of mine, and saying, hey, you should buy this stock. I would never be so presumptuous as to give somebody financial advice that way. But, when people see that you're happy and enthusiastic and kind of passionate and interested in something, look, it's only natural to share that. So if you're somebody who's like, hey, this is like a really cool stock. I've been invested in it. And yeah, man, hey, talk to your friends about it. Just say, hey, look, I've been following this stock. It's called Stronghold Digital Mining, ticker symbol SDIG on NASDAQ. Man, they're under $1 a share. It's kind of scary. Don't be freaked out. But man, they've got a really, really interesting business model. They can mine Bitcoin. They can sell power to the grid. They're like this energy arbitrage machine. They're kind of special. They're kind of unique. They're totally misunderstood. They're the ultimate underdog in the Bitcoin mining ecosystem. It's like you got to just get creative about how you talk about the company. And again, it's not about giving somebody investment advice or telling somebody to buy the stock. It's just sharing your own enthusiasm about what this company's all about, And if you happen to be in the state of Pennsylvania, gosh, I would think it's an even more natural sort of conversation to have. Hey, Stronghold Digital Mining, guess what? They're taking, or they're helping to take care of these waste coal piles that litter the state. Like I would think that Pennsylvania-based shareholders arguably have an even greater level of duty to say, hey, like we breathe the air, we drink the water. Like this is something that we collectively, want to see get taken care of, right? And so, listen, I know that I can come across quite over the top sometimes, and I'll apologize in advance if I can seem somewhat zealous about the mission and purpose of this company. But I don't know, I just really feel that way. This is legitimate. I've said this before, I'm not being paid by a hedge fund. I'm not employed by the company. I'm not, I'm not a paid actor, right? Doing this as some sort of like elaborate infomercial. Hey, I'm a shareholder, I'm a co-owner, just like other shareholders and co-owners, okay? The difference is I decided to push myself dramatically outside my comfort zone, to start publishing videos, getting active on social media, really to talk about this company and what I believe is our potential. And our potential is extremely, extremely awesome. We have an amazing future ahead of us. And half the battle is just, hey, we got to survive the crypto winter, which, as was mentioned in our investor presentation today, it seems as if though we're out of the woods. The worst is probably at this point behind us as a company, and that's great. Now we just have to keep on staying focused on cost containment, generating as much profitable revenue as we can, and really just telling our story and closing that gap between, our potential as a company, our potential as a business, right? Our potential as just this group of individuals, really, that are just passionate about, reclaiming the land here in Pennsylvania, cleaning up these waste coal piles, which are a really big problem, okay? And, just as a business too, right? To make a lot of useful revenue while helping to stabilize the grid, okay? While also providing transaction validation on the Bitcoin network. I mean, Bitcoin's a really, really big deal, a really big deal. So I love this company. I'm 100% supportive of what our management team is doing. And so if you're somebody who's been sort of on the fence and you're like, hey, I don't know, like I bought some shares, it sounds like an interesting story, I'm asking you to step up and decide if you really want to kind of get involved and start sharing our story with your friends, people you know, because the truth is we're an obscure company. We're a small company to begin with, okay, but we suffer from obscurity, and so we need to break through the noise and try to get a little bit of attention, some well-deserved attention, because we're doing really, really good work. Okay, this is going to be the last video for a bit here, okay? I've been doing this nonstop now for 29 days. So find me on the links below, Twitter. There's some research notes. You can go to the homemade dashboard. You can check out what's going on with the company, and stay great, stay positive, and let's see if we can move this company in the right direction. And I already know we're going in the right direction, but it's just about getting other people to realize that we're going in the right direction. We're going to survive the crypto winter, and we're going to do really, really well. Okay, thank you so much, and I'll catch up with you next time.